Hello, and welcome to Nightmare County. I'm your host, Rando M. Ghoul. Tonight we're going to talk about a production company that started back in 1999 called Dark Castle Entertainment. Dark Castle Entertainment for me was a very special production company at the time that it came out because they were going to focus on releasing or remaking old William Castle movies, specifically movies like House on Haunted Hill, 13th Ghost, and so on. Sadly, though, Dark Castle Entertainment never made it past 13th Ghost in their remake cycle of William Castle movies, which to me was a disservice to the William Castle and the whole, idea of what they were going to do. Because I really would have loved to have seen a remake of Mr. Sardonicus or Macabre or something. I mean, there's just so many other of his films that they could have done a cool little twist with a modern sensibility. Now, they did go on and remake a Vincent Price movie of House of Wax. And most of their films, for me, at the age that I saw them, which, 99, I was... I was 16, 17 years old. Show you how old I am. When they were released, they were just fun movies to go see. House on Haunted Hill, the remake, was such a fun movie for me at the time because, you had Jeffrey Combs in it. You had Chris Kattan. I like seeing Chris Kattan in comedies and stuff, and he actually, his character was it worked. He played the character he needed to play, and that's what I liked it. But Jeffrey Rush is the Vincent Price like character. To me, is just the icing on the cake, and he does such an excellent job as that character. But it was just a fun movie. So when I saw House on Haunted Hill, the remake, it made me excited what they were going to do because it made me read up on what Dark Castle was going to do. I remember reading in Fangoria magazines and stuff what their whole mission was, and they were going to remake William Castle movies. And I was like, this is going to be awesome, because I'd already seen like old movie, the old 13th Ghost, old House on Haunted Hill, The Tingler. God, if they could have remade The Tingler, that would have been awesome. But those old horror movies of William Castle's were just really fun. I wish I could have seen William Castle's old movies back in its heyday when they used the gimmicks with the theaters and stuff like that, because that would just made them so much more awesome. But especially with like the Tingler and the vibrating seats and stuff like that, that would just be. I think the genius of William Castle was just that he took a small film and they always felt bigger than what they were. And to this day, I don't know one horror movie fan that does not watch, I think, Vincent Price's House on Haunted Hill at least once a year. That's like a Halloween staple, especially for me it is. And I know for several other people, because it's just a good, spooky, fun Halloween horror movie. Even though it doesn't take place in Halloween, but it's just a good, fun horror movie. And it's easy to watch. But Dark Castle was supposed to remake all of these William Castle movies, and they just never did. They got to the House on Haunted Hill came out, it did fairly well, and then they followed it up with 13th Ghost, which, in all honesty, is one of those horror movies. It's a lot better than I think anyone ever gives it credit for. It's just simply a fun horror movie. The monsters in it are freaking fantastic. The Jackal, I have seen the Jackal and the Jackal from 13 Ghosts. I've seen that at so many haunted houses. That's like been a feature in so many haunted houses I've been to. That shows you the impact that 13 Ghosts had at the time on entertainment and everything. And even though it didn't do as well, I think it did do a little bit better than House on Haunted Hill. Don't quote me on that because I'm not for certain, but I do believe it just seemed like it did do better than that, because it seemed like not only did I see it, but it seemed like everyone else that I knew had seen it. So here we are. We're rolling along with Dark Castle and everything. And I forgot the quote. Like Robert Zemeckis, Gilbert Adler, and Joel Silver were the masterminds behind Dark House Entertainment. And the next movie they ever had for 13 Ghosts was Ghost Ship, which to this day probably has one of the best opening sequences in any horror movie you'll ever see. Guaranteed, hands down. I don't care what anyone else says. That's a fact. The first 5 minutes of that movie set up what could have been an epically awesome horror movie. But as it stands, it's still a fairly fun movie to watch. It's pretty good. I'm not going to lie. Ghost Ship is still a fun movie to watch. But what it sets up at the beginning is totally let down by what you find later on in the movie. But it's still well made. I won't take that away from it. It's still well made, and I still enjoyed it. But for some reason, and what's funny is Ghost Ship there's an old horror movie, from the 50s that's called Ghost Ship as well, but it wasn't a William Castle movie. So it was like, okay, was Joel and Robert, were they just going to start going off and do movies from that time period and remake them just with a totally different premise, or were they going to get back on track and make remake William Castle movies? But they never did. They simply just started making. I think after Ghost Ship, it was The Reckoning or Gothica, and they were just these subpar horror movies that just were never that good. Well, Gothica. I won't take that away from Gothica. Gothica was a decent whodunit, but it wasn't a horror movie. And I think that's what a lot of us wanted was Dark Castle. You mean with that title and William Castle, you want gimmicky, schlocky, fun horror movies. And Gothica and The Reaping, they were just not that at all. So, but they did follow it up with a remake of a Vincent Price classic, House of Wax. Most people went and watched that because they wanted to watch Paris Hilton. What was going to happen to her in that horror movie? And I'm not going to tell you, because if you haven't seen it, you should probably go out and find House of Wax and watch it, because it's a pretty fun slasher-esque movie. Nothing like the House of Wax before it with Vincent Price, but it's still a decent fun horror movie to watch. It's a slasher movie through and through. You're not going to be surprised by anything, but the effects in it are quite awesome, and some of them will make you squeamish just a little bit. So I do recommend House of Wax. It's a fun movie to watch with your friends and such. But yeah, I mean, it's like Dark Castles, they set themselves up to start making these horror movies based on William Castle's films, and they just didn't deliver. They started after House of Wax, they started going off. I think they made like Ninja Assassin. They helped produce that, and then they produced the Losers, the DC Comics adaptation with Chris Evans before he found fame as Captain America. And it was just like they just started going off and doing all these other shows and movies, producing crime capers like Rock and Rolla, Guy Ritchie's film, and they steered so far away from horror movies. I think they came back and they produced what was it? It just left me. Splice. That was another movie that they produced and everything. And I mean, while that was a pretty decent sci-fi movie, they got good reviews and such. They felt so far removed from what their initial plan was. And by that time, I think that was in the 2000. That was the 2008, 9, 10. And they just really fell away from what they were going to start off as, and it kind of sucked, especially when you're a William Castle fan. You were hoping they were going to remake nothing but William Castle movies. And I know William Castle made more than horror movies. He made gangster movies and westerns. I mean, if they wanted to remake those, and I mean, I'd have been all for it. But you're telling everybody when you first come out, yeah, we're going to make exclusive William Castle movies. We're going to remake them. And after your second movie, you just steer away from that, and they got away as far as ways they could from that. And like I said, and I've said this repeatedly already, it just sucked that Dark Castle veered so far away from what their initial plan was. It's very disappointing, but I guess that's the Hollywood biz and everything. And if your movies aren't as successful as you want them to be, you try to go out and do something totally different, trying to bring in fans, and it kind of worked, but also kind of didn't, and it kind of they just kind of disappeared, and it sucks. So, but yeah, I would have to say that probably the last good horror film that they did release would probably be Orphan. And I've heard that they're fixing. I think they're going to make a sequel to that, or at least they've been trying to make a sequel to that for, man, quite a while it seems like. But Orphan was a good, fairly good horror movie, child horror movie, probably one of the better ones that I've ever seen. But no, I mean, if you ever want a good spooky set of films to watch for Halloween or with a bunch of friends and just have a good time and laugh and everything, I would definitely say the old Dark Castle Entertainment movies, House on Haunted Hill, 13th Ghost, and Ghost Ship. I would even put in House of Wax right after that. At least those four, and Orphan. That would probably be a good 5-set film set of movies to watch from Dark Castle. But I would stay far away from The Reaping, because that movie, anyways, it's so substandard. It's such a basic horror movie that they have a creepy premise and it just doesn't deliver. I'm not trying to review those movies right now, but it's just not as fun as all the others that Dark Castle released. And of course, if you want to, well, you know what? Now that I think about it, The Hills Run Red, excellent slasher, in fact, that came out. And it got a little surface. I mean, I remember reading about it in Fangoria magazine and Rue Morgue, and it didn't seem like it came out in theaters nowhere near me. But I was lucky to find it on DVD, and man, that was a fun horror movie to watch. It's a very different type of slasher movie, and I think it's worthy of being mentioned. It came out during the time of when the better horror movies being released on DVD and Blu-ray, like the Rise of Leslie, Behind the Mask, The Rise of Leslie Vernon, and Hills Run Red was probably the two best slasher movies that came out during that time period. Along with probably I throw Hatchet in there as well, because Hatchet's another great practical effects, just fun slasher movie. But that's not Dark Castle. Talking about Dark Castle movies, like I said, House on Haunted Hill, 13th Ghost, Ghost Ship, House of Wax, and Orphan. Those 5 films right there are probably, to me, the best movies that Dark Castle released in the horror genre. If you want to get into action movies and stuff, Losers is fun, Rock and Roll is fun, Ninja Assassin's bloody and fun. But those, like I said, those aren't horror movies. But it'd be nice for Dark Castle to make a comeback or focus strictly on old William Castle movies and remaking those. I would appreciate those, because not all William Castle movies were just great. They were fun, and I think that's the magic and the power behind those movies. And it was the gimmicks. When you read about the gimmicks on William Castle's horror movies, they just sound like a blast to experience. And I wish there was some way a theater could bring those back, like put one in each state and just let them go crazy. But yeah, I just wish that, like I said, I wish Dark Castle would somehow make a comeback and focus strictly on William Castle movies, and then maybe release the occasional original story or horror movie and everything. But yeah, after the during the mid 2000s, I mean, Blumhouse is really the theater that came in and kind of just took the horror genre away from everybody else. It seemed like Blumhouse films are they're rocking along so strong and everything, with the Conjuring and Annabelle and everything. They just that universe that Blumhouse has created is, they got a stranglehold on the supernatural market, which is what some of the films that Dark Castle was releasing and such. But anyways, no, but yeah, if you get a chance, look up Dark Castle, read about him. If anything, find stuff about William Castle, read about him. I'll probably do a video on William Castle alone, and because he just, I mean, during the 50s and 60s, he just released a lot of fun horror movies that I think everyone should at least experience once. I think everybody watches House on Haunted Hill. If not, you've seen horror movies where it's playing in the background, and it's a movie you can find almost in every multi horror movie box set at Walmart for like $5. Yeah. If you get a chance, look up William Castle, read about him, because I mean he's got a cool story and everything in his books. And I'll probably do a video strictly focusing on William Castle. I just want to talk about Dark Castle Entertainment because I saw it in my late teenage years. I really enjoyed the brand for what they were going to do. It's sad that they didn't fulfill it and follow that, but it was cool. They had a cool logo. You can't deny that they don't have a cool logo. I don't care. They do. It's an awesome logo. But yeah, like I said, I know it's been a while since my last video as well, between this one, but a lot of things happen, and you know how it is. But I'm getting back on with doing things, and I'll probably, like I said, in my last video, I said I was going to probably talk about Bela Lugosi, Boris Karloff, and all of them, and focus on some lesser-known Universal Monster movie character actors like George Zuko and such. And I'm probably going to do that more or less in my next video. And I'm probably going to veer off to do a video on cryptozoology's probably biggest name, Bigfoot. And Bigfoot or Sasquatch or the folk monster or whatever you want to call him, as he has, or the Yeti. I mean, literally, he's got, I don't know how many names he has, but I was going to focus on Bigfoot's impact on the movie industry and everything, because there's been a lot of Bigfoot movies made. Almost everyone with a gorilla suit and a camera has made a Bigfoot movie. Heck, even I was going to make a Bigfoot movie with my friends years ago. Well, not really Bigfoot, but kind of like Bigfoot. It's going to be like Bigfoot. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you can, hit that like button, subscribe, and if you want to hit me with any comments or questions, you know what to do. So don't be a stranger and tune in.